Hello everyone. Today in this video, let us see how we can load data using Snowpipe REST API. So we can use this API to load the data on an incremental or batch model or an incremental model. So to do that, we're gonna understand like how we can use the SDK, the Python SDK, and how we can load the data. So firstly, let me explain what is a Snowpipe. Snowpipe enables loading the data from files as soon as they are available in a stage. So a stage is a place where you will keep all your files, and Snowpipe picks the files from the stage. So this means you can load the data from the files in micro batches, making it available to user within minutes. So rather than manually copying, executing the copy statements in the Snowflake, we can use and schedule and load large batches of data using Snowpipe. So in this video, let us see how we can set up the Snowpipe REST API and push the data to Snowflake. Firstly, so Snowflake offers two SDKs basically to implement the Snowpipe REST API. One is a Java and another one is a Python. So in this example, for this demo, we are going to use the Python SDK. So the initial step would be installing the Python SDK. So to do that, you can use the pip install snowflake _ingest command as you're seeing on the screen. So using this command, you can install all the required libraries for Snowflake ingest. So once you're doing that, once you're done with that, so you need to prep the Snowflake environment, like creating of the database, tables, stages, pipes, and all of that. So we can go ahead and do that. So let's go to the Snowflake environment. So first let us create a database called test, and let us use that database. And I'm going to use a sample CSV file. Let me show you that file here. So this is the sample CSV file I'm going to use. This is a pretty simple CSV file that has employee name, first name, last name, everything related to the employee. So we're gonna test with this CSV file. We're gonna load the CSV file into a stage first, and then we'll execute the Python file to load the data from the stage to the table. So to do that, firstly let's create a test table. So this test table will be exactly replicating the schema of the employees.csv file. So let's go ahead and create this table. Okay, the table is created. Now let's go ahead and create the stage. So this stage will be as a server-side encryptor. So why the main reason of using the server-side and the client-side encryption is basically when you are putting the files into stages, and when the pipe is picking the files from the stage, if you use client-side encryption, the same file will be picked again and again as you execute the pipe. But with the server-side encryption, so the Snowflake will be identifying it by a unique identifier that is generated, and once the file is picked, and once the file name by the file name and the file schema, so it will verify, and it will not be loading the same file again even if it is failing. So that is the main difference between server-side encryption and the client-side encryption. So I recommend using server-side encryption because that is more appropriate and more fit to the scenario that we're going to use. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create this stage. So the stage is successfully created. Now before creating the pipe, I'm going to create a CSV file format. The file, I hope everyone knows what is a file format. The file format is basically the format that we're going to define. So how exactly the file has to be loaded when the pipe is loading from the stage. So I'm saying, since the table is already created, I'm saying this is the CSV file, and it is delimited by the new line, and it is field delimited by the commas. And I'm skipping the header because the table is already created and I don't want the header row to be coming into the data. And all the other things are like if it is null, and if it is if it is field is blank, so I'm handling all of that and I'm creating this file format. So I'm gonna create this file format, and using this file format I'm gonna create the pipe. So what is a pipe? So pipe is basically copies the data into this test table using the files in the stage and using this CSV format. So only, even if your stage is having the files other than CSV or like the JSON or Parquet or any other files, so this pipe will not pick up those files because you said you want only the type of CSV. So only the CSV files will be loaded into your table. So that is how it works. So now let's go ahead and create the pipe. Okay, so before going to the further steps, I would like to so this if you follow this documentation, so we have created the stage, we have created the pipe, we have done all of that. So now we have to configure the security per user. This security configuration would be requiring two steps. One is generating the public key and generating the private key. So you need to install OpenSSL on your machine, and you need to generate the public key and private key. Let me show you. Let me show you the commands to do that. Okay, let me bring those commands here. Just a second. So using these two commands, you're gonna create the public key and private key using the OpenSSL. So once you create this public key, while you're creating this public key, this will be asking you for the passphrase as well, which you are gonna use in the Python SDK file that we are gonna run. So make sure you note that passphrase when you are creating or when you're generating these keys. So once you run these two commands and create the public key and private key, you need to keep them in a folder that is accessible to the program that we're going to create. I'll show in detail how we're going to do that, but I hope you be creating these keys for yourself. Okay, now once you have those keys, so what you have to do is you need to assign that key to the user, to your current user. So I'm doing that using this alter user command. So I'm gonna set the public key. So it is like the communication between Snowflake and my machine where the SDK is installed. So that is how you do that. So we alter the user and we assign this public key. So let's go ahead and do that. So this statement is executed successfully. So if I describe this user, so you can see, let me expand this. You can see this public key is generated. Okay. So now, once this is done, we need to, if we go to this documentation, it say you need to grant the access privileges. So this access privileges is basically we are going to create a new role and assign the usage on the database, schema and table, stage and pipe and all of that privileges to that particular role, so that so there won't be any problem in accessing those particular roles while we do that from the SDK. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So firstly, I'm using the role as account admin. I'm creating a role as Snowpipe, and then I'm granting the usage on database for this role, and then I'm granting usage on schema for this role, and I'm gonna grant insert and select for the table for this role, and I'm going to grant usage on database for this role. Okay, I think I had already done that. I can remove this one. Okay, I'm gonna grant read write on the stage for this role. So one thing to observe here is, so if you see in the documentation for the stage, it was granting the usage, whereas in my scenario, I'm granting the read write. Why? The main difference of doing this is because usage privileges will be working on the external stage. But here, since I'm using the internal stage, I'm using the read write grant instead of the usage grant, because the usage grant won't be working on the internal stage. So that is something that you need to observe. So, and also I'm granting the privileges for the pipe finally. So once this is done, this is done, I need to, I think I'm missing these two here. Let me bring that. So pipe 2, this is my user. So basically I'm granting this role to the current user, and also I'm making this the newly created role as the default role for this user. So we are done. We are good with setting up the environment at the Snowflake side. So we created the table, the stage, the pipe, and also we have given the security permissions, and we have configured the security, the key, and all of that. Now we need to put the file in the stage. To do that, we need to go to the SnowSQL. So if you want to understand what exactly SnowSQL is, you can refer to the previous video wherein I have done a detailed explanation of how you can log into your Snowflake account, and how you can install the Snowflake on your machine and all of that. So go ahead and refer that video if you need to understand that. So for now, we'll be logging into the Snowflake account or SnowSQL using the command prompt. So if you see here, so this would be the command SnowSQL -a refers to the account, and -u username. So I'm going to log in. It will be asking me for the password. So I'm going to enter the password. So here I'm into the SnowSQL. So you can see there is no database selected here. You can see there is no database. Let us select the database. Use database, test database. Enter. So the database is selected. You see the database and schema change here now. Now let us put the file. Okay, I'm putting the file employees.csv file which I showed you earlier to test stage, and I'm saying auto compress false or write true. Okay, now the file is placed in the stage. Great. Now let's see if you can see the file here. Okay, so this is how we're gonna do or upload the CSV file. Now we have everything set up at the Snowflake side. Now we need to use the Python SDK code, and then using that code we need to bring the data from the stage to the table. So if you see, the table doesn't have any data as of now, but when we run the code using the Python SDK, so this table should populate the data. Okay, let's go ahead. If you see here, you will be finding the code here. If you see here, it is having the Python SDK, and you can see the GitHub is having the source code. Okay, so you can use the same. I'm using the same code to connect to the Snowflake and load the data. So let me explain in detail how exactly is that. So, okay, this is the sample data that we have brought in. So if you see, firstly, it is importing all the libraries, the Snowflake ingest related libraries, the crypto libraries and all of that. And after that, we need to change this path. We need to create a temp folder and we need to give option to ingest the logs. And then as said earlier, you need to mention the fast phrase that you have generated while generating your keys, that you have to mention here. And then you need to mention the path to the key, the private key that you have generated in the generated earlier. And after that, you need to mention what is your account identifier and what is your host, the username, and the pipe you created. So we created the test pipe, right? So we need to mention that test pipe, test underscore pipe here, something like that. And here in the stage file list, you need to mention the file that is there. For example, in our scenario, we see that in our stage there is this file employees.csv. So we need to mention this file, just the name of the file, not the test stage slash. You need to remove that. You need to mention just the file name employees.csv, and that has to go in here. Okay. So, and regarding the size, if you don't know the size, you just need to pass none. You can see that here it is mentioned here, pass none if not available. Okay. So I have I have created all the details here. I'm not going to show that because of the security reasons. Okay, so in this load.py file, I have made all the changes. So I have mentioned the file name and all of that. So now I'm going to run that file here. Okay, now let's go to command prompt. Okay, let me navigate to that so if you see, so this is where I have placed my file load.py. So as said earlier, I created a temp folder. This temp folder will contain ingesting logs, and I have created a separate folder called key, and this key folder will be having the private and public key that we generated. Okay, now I'm gonna run this load.py. Let's copy this path and let's navigate to that path. And let's Python load.py. Okay, it's going to take some time because it has to process the file, right? So it has to load the data from the stage to the table using Snowpipe. So it's pretty simple. Basically, you need, once you set up all of that, you can there is this auto ingest option also available in the Snowpipe. Using that, whenever a new file comes into the stage, the pipe will be automatically loading that to the table. So that we will cover in another video, but for now we are not using the auto ingest option. So if you can see the result, so it is saying the status is loaded. So we have not seen any errors, which is good. So 50 rows are inserted into the employees.csv file, which is great. Okay, let us go here and see what exactly is in our test table. Yeah, you see all the data is loaded in the test table. So this is how you use the Snowpipe REST API to load the data from your stage, the files in your stage to the table. So I hope this is helpful. So if you have any questions or if you want any kind of help from me, please leave comments. I'm happy to help. And please do subscribe and please do like this video. Hope this is helpful, and I'll meet you in the next one. Bye.